The year is 1896. You stand at Land's End, the westernmost point of San Francisco. Behind you, a city still raw from gold rush fever. Before you, the Pacific, cold, endless, indifferent. And there, clinging to the cliff like ambition made stone, rises the Cliff House. Not the first, not the last. The third incarnation. Adolph Sutro built this one. The Nevada Silver King, who bought half the coastline because he believed beauty shouldn't belong only to the rich. If you enjoy deep investigations into Gilded Age architecture and the families who built it, please like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments which house to explore next. Your support makes these detailed stories possible. 7 stories. Unanswered roof piercing the fog, gingerbread trim carved so fine it looks like lace frozen in wood, stained glass that turns ocean light into cathedral color. Cost $75,000. Roughly $2.8 million today. Sutro doesn't blink at the number. The building opens to the public in 1896. No admission fee. No velvet ropes. Anyone can walk through doors meant for empires. Waiters in white jackets serve oysters and champagne. An orchestra plays on weekends. Families arrive by steam train, by carriage, on foot. They come to see the seals on the rocks below, to watch storms hammer glass that never breaks, to stand in a palace and feel for one afternoon like they own the horizon. Sutro watches from the corner table he keeps for himself. White beard, dark suit, eyes that built railroads and drained mines now studying faces instead of ledgers. He sees what he wanted to see. Working men in their Sunday clothes, children pressing noses to windows, women who've never held crystal, touching goblets like they might shatter from the honor. This is the dream. Public grandeur, democratic beauty. But Sutro is 66 years old in 1896. Within 2 years, he'll be dead. And the Cliff House will learn what happens to dreams when the dreamer stops breathing. The trouble doesn't announce itself. It arrives in increments, small failures that compound. Maintenance costs rise. The ocean air corrodes metal faster than anyone predicted. Salt eats paint, wind loosens shingles. Fog seeps into wood joints and refuses to leave. Sutro's estate inherits the property. His children inherit the bills. They are not their father. They did not choose this coastline, this building, this vision of what California could be. They inherited a landmark that bleeds money every month it stands. The Cliff House becomes a problem to solve rather than a dream to protect. By 1900, the estate begins exploring options. Lease it, sell it, convert it to something profitable. The building that was supposed to belong to everyone now belongs to no one who wants it. Investors circle. Men with plans for private clubs, exclusive hotels, members-only privileges. Everything Sutro built it to oppose. The city watches, newspapers print editorials, citizens write letters, but letters don't pay repair crews. Outrage doesn't replace rotted beams. The Cliff House stands, but it stands alone. Enter Dr. Emma Merritt. You won't find her name in most histories. No plaques commemorate her work, but in 1904, she begins visiting the Cliff House every Sunday. Not for the view, not for the oysters. She comes to document. Dr. Merritt is a physician and amateur photographer. She carries a folding camera and glass plates. She photographs the building from every angle. Close-ups of carved details. Wide shots of the full structure against sky and sea. Interior views of the grand dining room, the ballroom, the observation deck. She photographs the people too. Families on the terrace, workers cleaning tables, the coat check girl who hums while she works. Dr. Merritt keeps a journal, neat handwriting, dated entries. She records conversations overheard, structural observations, changes in staffing, small details that pattern into something larger. November 1906. Heard manager tell assistant the insurance premium doubled this year. Asked why. No clear answer given. January 1907. Noticed wiring crew working late, third time this month. Building code inspection? Or something else? March 1907. Fire marshal visited today. Stayed 20 minutes. Left without touring upper floors. Dr. Merritt isn't investigating. Not officially. She's simply a woman who loves a building and senses it's in danger. She doesn't know she's creating the only independent record of the Cliff House's final year. By summer 1907, the estate negotiations intensify. Multiple buyers, competing offers, rumors of rezoning. The Cliff House becomes valuable not for what it is, but for what it could become if it weren't there. And on the cliffs, the palace waits, unaware that in 6 months, everything will burn. December 1907. Dr. Merritt's photographs now show something new. Men in expensive coats standing on the terrace pointing, not at the ocean, at the land. 3 groups want the Cliff House property. None want the building. First, the Pacific Improvement Company. Railroad money. They see a luxury hotel, smaller footprint, modern construction, rates that keep the working class on the other side of the glass. Their offer, $85,000 for the land. The structure demolished within 60 days of sale. Second, a consortium of local businessmen led by John Tate. Tate owns restaurants, bathhouses, amusement concessions along the beach. He wants the Cliff House as an anchor for a broader entertainment complex. His vision? Electric lights, mechanical rides, spectacle instead of elegance. His offer, 78,000 $78,000 plus a percentage of future revenue to the Sutro estate. Third, the city itself. San Francisco's Board of Supervisors debates purchasing the property for public use. Alderman Morrison champions the cause. He gives speeches about Sutro's legacy, democratic access, cultural preservation. The vote fails. 6-5. Morrison is outraged. The newspapers call it short-sighted. Citizens protest, but the board's official reason is simple. The city cannot afford both purchase and maintenance. The Cliff House requires $12,000 annually just to keep standing. That's $12,000 not spent on schools, sewers, streetcars. Principal loses to arithmetic. The Sutro estate leans toward Tate's consortium. Not the highest offer, but the most flexible terms. Negotiations advance through autumn. Lawyers draft contracts. Tate begins making plans for demolition crews, new foundations, a timeline that puts construction underway by spring. Dr. Merritt photographs the negotiations without knowing it. She captures Tate on the terrace in October, November, December. Always the same posture. Arms crossed, surveying. She writes in her journal, "He looks at it the way you look at something already gone." The staff knows. Of course they know. James Wilkins, head waiter, 23 years at the Cliff House. He serves the negotiation dinners, hears fragments of conversation between courses. The consortium doesn't bother lowering their voices around servants. Marie Callahan, housekeeper. She overhears Tate's architect discussing load-bearing walls. Which ones to save during demolition, which ones to let fall. Thomas Chen, kitchen manager. He's told to stop ordering supplies more than 2 weeks out. No explanation given. The staff begins taking things, not stealing. Rescuing. Wilkins pockets a silver serving spoon engraved with the Cliff House crest. Callahan takes a piece of stained glass from a broken window in storage. Chen wraps one of the original menu cards in cloth and hides it in his coat. Small thefts against larger erasure. They don't talk about it. Not to each other. Not yet. But they all sense the same truth. This place is ending, and no one will remember it the way they do. No one will remember them at all. Mid-December brings storms, the kind the coast is known for. Rain that arrives horizontal. Waves that shake the foundation. The Cliff House has weathered worse. Built for this, Sutro chose materials that laugh at Pacific weather. But now, the maintenance has slipped. Repairs deferred. The estate sees no reason to invest in a building scheduled for demolition. A window on the third floor doesn't seal properly. Water seeps in, pools on the sill, finds its way to the wall cavity behind. No one notices. Or if they do, no one reports it. The wiring on the second floor, installed in the 1880s, outdated even then, runs through walls never designed for electrical current. Insulation degrades, connections loosen. Small problems, the kind every old building has. Except this building is about to change hands, about to disappear, about to become whatever Tate's money decides. December 23, 1907. Dr. Merritt visits the Cliff House for what she doesn't know is the last time. She photographs the Christmas decorations, garland on the banisters, a tree in the main hall, candles lit. She writes, "Everything looks beautiful. Everything feels wrong." 2 days later, the sale contract sits on desks in 3 offices, signatures pending. Tate's lawyers expect it finalized by January 3rd. The Cliff House has 1 week left as Sutro's dream. It has 2 days left standing. December 25th, 1907. Christmas at the Cliff House. The dining room fills early. Families claiming tables by the windows, children in their holiday clothes, faces pressed to glass, watching seals on the rocks below. The kitchen runs full capacity. Roast turkey, oyster stuffing, plum pudding flambéed tableside. James Wilkins works the floor. White jacket pressed sharp. He's done this for 23 Christmases, knows the rhythm, knows which tables want conversation, which want silence, which need extra bread before they ask. By 8 p.m. the crowd thins. Late diners linger over coffee. The orchestra plays carols softly. Someone requests Silent Night. The staff begins closing routines. Marie Callahan checks the upper floors, locks windows, straightens furniture in empty rooms. Thomas Chen supervises kitchen cleanup. Grease traps emptied. Stoves banked, ice boxes sealed. Standard procedure. Nothing unusual. By 10 p.m., the last guests depart. Wilkins counts the register. Callahan dims the gas lights in the main hall. Chen locks the kitchen door. The building settles into its night silence, wood contracting in cooling air. Waves against the cliff base, wind testing every joint and seam. 3 staff members remain overnight. Night watchman, on-duty manager, maintenance engineer. They rotate shifts, patrolling halls every 2 hours. Everything normal. Everything fine? Until it isn't. 1:47 a.m., December 26th. The night watchman, Robert Hastings, smells it first. Not smoke. Not yet. Something electrical. That sharp, burning wire smell that makes you stop breathing and start listening. He's on the second floor, follows his nose to the east wing. The scent stronger near the linen storage room. He opens the door. Smoke pours out. Not thick. Not yet. But unmistakable. Hastings runs for the alarm bell, pulls it hard. The clang echoes through empty halls, across the grounds, down to the caretaker's cottage below the cliff. The on-duty manager, Philip Morrison, reaches the second floor within 2 minutes, sees the smoke now billowing from the linen room, makes the calculation every manager dreads: fight it or evacuate. He chooses wrong. Morrison grabs the fire extinguisher from the wall. Chemical foam. Good for small fires. He steps into the smoke. The fire isn't small. It's already in the walls, already climbing through the cavity spaces between floors, feeding on decades-old wood and fabric. The linen room is just where it chose to announce itself. Morrison empties the extinguisher. The flames don't slow. He runs. By 2 a.m., the fire owns the second floor. By 2:15, it punches through to the third. The volunteer fire brigade arrives from the city at 2:30. 6 men, 1 steam pumper, 400 feet of hose. They stare at the building. 7 stories. Mansard roof already crowned in flame. Windows exploding from heat. The entire structure lit from within like a cathedral made of fire. The brigade captain, Daniel O'Rourke, makes his own calculation. He looks at the water pressure available, the wind speed, the building's height. He orders his men to protect the neighboring structures instead. The cliff house cannot be saved. Dr. Merritt learns about it at dawn. A neighbor pounds on her door. The cliff house is burning. She grabs her camera, runs. By the time she arrives, the roof has collapsed. The upper floors are gone. What remains is a skeleton, blackened beams. Walls standing, but hollowed. The grand staircase reduced to charcoal. She photographs it anyway. The famous windows, shattered. The carved facade, ash. The ballroom where orchestras played, open to sky. Sutro's dream burning in the winter dawn. Crowds gather, silent mostly. Some cry, many just stand, watching wealth and beauty and history collapse into itself. James Wilkins stands at the back of the crowd, still wearing yesterday's clothes. He never went home after his shift, slept in his apartment 2 blocks away. He watches the building where he spent 23 years. Watches it fall. His hand moves to his pocket, touches the silver spoon he took. Hidden rescue that now feels like theft from a corpse. Marie Callahan stands beside him, doesn't speak, doesn't need to. They all know what this means. Not just a building gone, their jobs, their routines, the place that gave them purpose and paycheck and a small piece of beauty in their working lives. Gone by breakfast. By noon, John Tate arrives, surveys the ruins. Someone asks if he'll rebuild. He smiles, shakes his head. No need, he says. The land's worth more empty anyway. December 27th, 1907. The fire inspector arrives at dawn. City requirement. Any commercial fire over $10,000 in damage requires official investigation. This one destroyed roughly $100,000 worth of property. Adjusted for inflation, $3.7 million. The inspector is William Darrow. 15 years with the San Francisco Fire Department. He's investigated hundreds of fires, knows the signatures, knows what accidental looks like. This doesn't look accidental. He begins at the linen storage room. Origin point confirmed by multiple witnesses. He examines the walls, the floor, what's left of the ceiling. Finds the electrical conduit, melted copper, charred insulation. The wiring ran behind the wall, feeding lighting fixtures on the 3rd floor. Standard conclusion: electrical fault, overloaded circuit, sparks ignited lint and fabric dust. Fire spread through wall cavities before anyone noticed. Standard conclusion. But Darrow keeps looking. He finds the junction box where the electrical line split. Opened recently, fresh tool marks on the screws. The insulation around the connection point isn't just degraded from age. It's been stripped back, deliberately, exposing bare wire to wood framing. He photographs it. Then he finds the second anomaly. The door to the linen storage room locked from the outside. Not unusual. Most storage rooms lock, but the lock mechanism shows force. The bolt bent. Someone opened this door hard recently without a key. Darrow writes in his report, evidence suggests potential tampering. Recommend further investigation. He submits it December 29th. The report disappears into city bureaucracy. Dr. Merritt doesn't see the inspector's findings. But she starts asking questions anyway. She returns to the ruins daily, photographs the debris from every angle, not for beauty, for evidence. She interviews staff. James Wilkins tells her about the negotiations, the pending sale, Tate's demolition timeline. Marie Callahan describes the deferred maintenance, the warnings ignored, the strange men on the property in the weeks before the fire. Thomas Chen tells her something else. 2 days before Christmas, a man came to the kitchen entrance, said he was with the electrical company, checking service capacity. Chen let him in, watched him work for 20 minutes. The man went upstairs with a toolbox. Chen never saw paperwork, never got a name. I asked the manager about it next day, Chen says. He said no electrical inspection was scheduled. Dr. Merritt writes it all down. Then she does something unusual for a woman in 1907. She goes to the newspapers. The San Francisco Chronicle publishes her letter on January 4th, 1908. To the editor, "The fire that destroyed the Cliff House deserves scrutiny beyond sympathetic regret. Too many coincidences, too convenient a timing. I urge the city to investigate not merely how the fire started, but who benefited from its starting." The letter causes minor scandal. Women don't publicly accuse businessmen of arson. Women don't challenge official narratives. Dr. Merritt receives threats. Anonymous letters telling her to stay quiet, to mind her business, to remember her place. She keeps her photographs, keeps her journal, keeps watching. The insurance investigation runs parallel to the city's inquiry. The Sutro estate held a $60,000 policy on the building. The insurance company, Western Indemnity, sends its own investigator, Harold Pierce. Pierce is thorough. Interviews the fire brigade, examines the debris, requests the city's electrical fault findings. He also examines the financial records, discovers the building was overinsured. The Cliff House's actual value, given deferred maintenance and structural issues, was closer to $45,000. The policy was increased 6 months earlier. Premium doubled. Pierce finds something else. John Tate's consortium held a separate policy. Loss of opportunity insurance. If the building burned before sale completion, they'd receive compensation for lost investment potential. Payout, $25,000. Pierce writes his report, recommends denying the estate's claim pending further investigation. Flags Tate's policy as suspicious. Western Indemnity overrules him. They pay both claims, full amounts, no investigation. Pierce resigns in protest. His resignation letter is never made public. By February 1908, the official narrative solidifies. The Cliff House fire, tragic accident, electrical fault. Old building, deferred maintenance, unfortunate but inevitable. No criminal charges filed, no deeper investigation launched. The land sells to Tate's consortium in March. Discounted price given the clearing costs, $52,000. Tate begins construction on his entertainment complex by May. James Wilkins finds work at a hotel downtown. Marie Callahan takes a housekeeping position with a private family. Thomas Chen opens a small restaurant in Chinatown. They never speak publicly about what they saw, what they suspected. Dr. Merritt keeps photographing, keeps documenting, keeps her journal locked in a desk drawer. She knows the truth doesn't care about evidence. It cares about who has the power to decide what truth means. And in San Francisco, 1908, that power doesn't belong to a female physician with a camera. It belongs to men with money and lawyers and insurance policies that pay out no matter what burns. May 1908. Construction begins on Tate's vision. Not a palace, not a dream. A machine designed to extract money from joy. The new structure rises in 4 months. Wood frame, not stone. Cheaper, faster. Built for profit, not permanence. The architecture speaks a different language than Sutro's. Not classical grace, but carnival urgency. Electric lights everywhere. Hundreds of bulbs outlining the roofline, the windows, the entrance. Visible from miles away. The building doesn't whisper elegance. It shouts at spectacle. Tate names it the New Cliff House. Opens September 1908. The crowds come immediately. They don't come for oysters and orchestras. They come for the Ferris wheel installed on the North Terrace, for the shooting gallery, for the phonograph parlor where you can hear recorded music for a nickel, for the dance hall where admission is 50 cents and the band plays until 2 a.m. Tate doesn't charge for the view. He charges for everything else. The restaurant remains, but transformed. Quick service, high turnover, no lingering over coffee. The menu offers fried fish, beef stew, apple pie. Nothing that requires a trained chef. Nothing that slows profit. The old staff doesn't return. Tate hires younger workers, pays them less, rotates them faster. Wilkins, Callahan, Chen. They are not invited back. Too expensive, too slow, too connected to the building that was. The new Cliff House makes money, lots of it. First-year revenue, $180,000. More than Sutro's version ever generated. Tate expands, adds a second dance hall, a photography studio, a souvenir shop selling postcards, pennants, carved seashells. By 1910, the new Cliff House is San Francisco's premier amusement destination. By 1912, Tate owns 6 similar properties along the coast. By 1915, he's a millionaire. The fire investigation never reopens. Inspector Darrow's concerns filed and forgotten. Dr. Merritt's accusations dismissed as the conspiracy theories of an eccentric woman. The narrative hardens into history. Tragic accident, inevitable loss, triumphant rebirth. Newspapers celebrate Tate's entrepreneurial spirit, his ability to see opportunity in disaster, his gift for giving the public what it wants. No one mentions the convenient timing, the suspicious insurance policies, the man in Thomas Chen's kitchen 2 days before the fire. No one asks, but some people remember. Dr. Merritt continues her documentation. She photographs the new Cliff House monthly, not celebrating it. Cataloging it, she notes the changes, the additions, the accelerating commercialization. In her journal, January 1910, visited today, counted 47 electric advertising signs. The building looks like it's screaming. Sutro built a place where you could hear the ocean. Tate built a place where you can't hear yourself think. She interviews former staff when she can find them. Wilkins tells her about the silver spoon. Still has it. Keeps it in a drawer, wrapped in cloth. Sometimes I take it out, he says. Remember what service used to mean. Callahan describes working for the private family. Good wages, respectful treatment. But she misses the ocean, misses the building that felt like it belonged to something larger than one family's comfort. Chen's restaurant struggles. He's a good cook, but a poor businessman, too generous with portions. Too slow to turn tables. By 1911, he's barely breaking even. Dr. Merritt asks him why he doesn't adapt, copy Tate's model. Speed and volume. Chen looks at her like she suggested he burn his own house down. I cook the way I cook, he says. I won't become something else just because it's profitable. By 1914, Chen closes the restaurant, takes a position as a line cook at a hotel, someone else's kitchen, someone else's rules. He never complains, never explains. But Dr. Merritt sees it in his face when they talk. The same thing she sees in Wilkins, in Callahan, in her own mirror. Loss without language. Grief for something the world insists never existed. The world says, Tate improved the Cliff House, made it successful, made it accessible to more people. The numbers agree. More visitors, more revenue, more jobs created. But numbers don't measure what was lost. The silence where orchestras played, the space where working people could touch beauty without buying it, the idea that grandeur could exist without a cash register. Sutro built a place that said, this belongs to you. Tate built a place that said, this costs a nickel. Both attracted crowds. Only one required fire to make way for the other. December 1915. 8 years after the fire, Dr. Merritt stands on the terrace of the new Cliff House, camera in hand. She's photographing the Ferris wheel. A young couple walks past, laughing, holding cotton candy. They have no idea what stood here before. Why? January 1916. Dr. Emma Merritt receives an unexpected visitor. Harold Pierce, the insurance investigator who resigned in protest 8 years ago. He's older now. Thinner. Works as a private accountant in Oakland. Comfortable life. Quiet life. But he kept copies of his investigation files. He brings them to Dr. Merritt's office. A leather portfolio, dozens of pages. Financial records, witness statements, photographs of the junction box. correspondence between Western Indemnity and city officials. I couldn't make them listen then, Pierce says. Maybe someone will listen now. Dr. Merritt spreads the documents across her desk. The financial trail is clear. Tate's consortium purchased loss of opportunity insurance 3 months before the fire. The policy specifically covered scenarios where the property became unavailable due to accidental destruction. Premium, $840. Payout, $25,000. The Sutro estate increased their building insurance from $40,000 to $60,000 6 months before the fire. The increase approved without new appraisal, without inspection. Premium increase, $180. Payout, $60,000. Pierce's notes show he interviewed the insurance agent who processed both policies. Same agent, same company. Both applications submitted within weeks of each other. The agent's name, Robert Halloway. Dr. Merritt recognizes it. She searches her own records, finds him in her photographs. November 1907. Standing on the Cliff House terrace beside John Tate. Not random. Connected. Pierce shows her more. The electrical company Thomas Chen mentioned, the one that supposedly sent an inspector 2 days before the fire, didn't exist. Pierce checked. No business license, no city contracts, no record of any legitimate electrical inspection scheduled for the Cliff House in December 1907. The man with the toolbox was never identified, never questioned, never found. Pierce's final document, a letter from Fire Inspector William Darrow to the city's chief of police, dated January 1908. Darrow's letter requests a criminal investigation, outlines the evidence of tampering, names Tate's consortium as having financial motive. The chief's response, handwritten in the margin, insufficient evidence to proceed. Case closed. Dr. Merritt asks the question that's been building for 8 years. Why didn't they investigate? Pierce doesn't hesitate. Because Tate contributed $5,000 to the mayor's re-election campaign in 1906, because 2 city supervisors owned stock in his company, because Western Indemnity insured half the commercial buildings in San Francisco, and challenging one claim would invite scrutiny of others. He pauses. And because Sutro was dead. His heirs wanted the insurance money more than they wanted justice. The staff had no power. You had no authority. And I had no courage. The last part, he says quietly. Dr. Merritt studies the documents for 3 days. She writes a comprehensive report, 30 pages, chronological timeline, financial evidence, witness testimony, Pierce's insurance investigation, Darrow's engineering findings. She titles it, The Cliff House Fire, Evidence of Criminal Conspiracy and Official Negligence. She submits it to the San Francisco District Attorney's Office. February 1916. The DA's office sends a formal response 6 weeks later. Insufficient evidence to reopen the case. Statute of limitations expired for fraud charges. Key witnesses unavailable or deceased. Physical evidence destroyed or degraded beyond forensic value. Professional language for, we're not touching this. Dr. Merritt tries the newspapers. The Chronicle, which published her original letter in 1908, declines. Too libelous? Too incendiary? Tate would sue. The Examiner declines. The Call declines. One editor tells her privately, everyone knows what happened. No one can prove it. And the people who could prove it won't risk their livelihoods for a building that's already gone. She tries one final avenue. She contacts the families of the night watchman, the on-duty manager, the maintenance engineer who were in the building when the fire started, hoping they saw something, remembered something, might speak now 8 years later, with legal protections expired. Robert Hastings, the watchman, died in 1912. Pneumonia. Philip Morrison, the manager who tried to fight the fire, moved to Portland. Dr. Merritt writes him 3 letters. No response. The maintenance engineer, George Sullivan, agrees to meet. They sit in his apartment in the Tenderloin. March 1916. Sullivan is 64 now. Hands shaking from what he says is age, but Dr. Merritt suspects is something else. She asks him about the night of the fire. About the weeks before? About anything unusual? Sullivan sits quiet for a long time. Then, I saw the man, the one with the toolbox. I let him into the second floor. He said he was checking the electrical panel. Showed me a work order. Did you keep the work order? Burned with everything else. Do you remember his name? Sullivan shakes his head. But I remember his face, and I've seen him since, working for Tate, construction supervisor at the New Cliff House. Dr. Merritt feels her breath stop. Would you testify to that? Sullivan looks at his shaking hands. No, ma'am. I wouldn't. He's afraid. 8 years later, still afraid. April 1916. Dr. Merritt stops investigating, not because she's convinced it's hopeless, because she's run out of people willing to speak, but the case lives in her desk drawer. Photographs, documents, witness statements, 30 pages of evidence no one will read. She locks it away, returns to her medical practice, and watches the people who paid the real price. James Wilkins, the head waiter, is 67 years old in 1916. He works at the Palace Hotel downtown. Same job, different building, serving tables, pouring wine, smiling at guests who don't know his name. The palace is grand. Marble columns, crystal chandeliers, everything the Cliff House aspired to. But Wilkins hates it. Not the work, not the guests, the purpose. The palace serves wealth. The Cliff House served everyone. He thinks about that difference every shift. The working families who came to the Cliff House in their Sunday best. Children who'd never seen the ocean from inside a palace. People for whom that building represented proof that beauty wasn't rationed by bank account. The palace has no such illusions. You belong here if you can afford to. Otherwise, the doorman stops you at the entrance. Wilkins keeps the silver spoon in his apartment, takes it out on his days off, polishes it even though it doesn't tarnish. His daughter asks him once why he keeps it. It's from a place that doesn't exist anymore, he says. Just a spoon though, Papa. He doesn't explain. Can't explain. How do you tell someone that an object holds more than its function? That this piece of silver represents the last evidence of his best years? He dies in 1921. Heart failure. The spoon is sold with his estate effects for 35 cents. Marie Callahan works for the Morrison family through 1918. Good employers, fair wages, respectful treatment. She has her own room, Sundays off, Christmas bonus. But she dreams about the Cliff House, not the building itself, the ritual of it. Walking the upper floors at closing, straightening furniture no one would notice was crooked, locking windows that faced infinity, the feeling of being trusted with something larger than yourself. At the Morrison house, she cleans rooms for one family. Their mess, their lives, their small kingdom, important work, honest work, but not transcendent work. The Cliff House made her feel like she was caring for something that mattered to the city, to strangers, to history. The Morrison house makes her feel like hired help. The difference erodes her from the inside. She quits in 1918, takes a job at a hospital, cleaning wards, emptying bedpans, scrubbing floors that see death daily. Harder work, worse pay. But when she locks the supply closet at end of shift, she feels useful again, necessary, part of something that serves people who need it. She works there until she's too old to push a mop. Dies in 1934, no family, no inheritance, buried at public expense. Her obituary is 4 lines in the Chronicle. Lists her as hospital worker. Doesn't mention the Cliff House. Doesn't mention the 15 years she spent caring for a building that was supposed to last forever. Thomas Chen struggles longest. After his restaurant fails, he works hotel kitchens for a decade. Line cook, prep station, salary positions with no creative control. He cooks the way he's told. Fast portions, standardized recipes, food designed to fill stomachs, not create experiences. It breaks something in him. By 1924, he's drinking. Not heavily, just enough to dull the gap between what he knows he can do and what he's allowed to do. His hands still remember the Cliff House kitchen, the Christmas banquets, the wedding receptions, the Sunday dinners where families saved for months to afford a single meal. He remembers cooking like it mattered, like the food was part of the experience, not just fuel between attractions. Now he cooks on a timer. Plate, serve, repeat. He dies in 1928. Liver failure, 53 years old. His funeral is attended by 6 people, former co-workers. No family located. They bury him in a Chinese cemetery south of the city. No headstone, just a wooden marker that rots away within 5 years. Nothing left to say he existed. Nothing left to say he created beauty for 2 decades. Dr. Merritt documents their endings when she can. She writes obituaries in her journal, not the public versions, the true ones. For Wilkins, served grace to a city that forgot what service means. For Callahan, cared for a palace, spent her last years caring for the dying, both acts of equal dignity. For Chen, fed thousands, died hungry for purpose. She's 62 in 1928, still practicing medicine, still photographing, still keeping records. She knows what happens to evidence when no one wants to see it. It becomes invisible, not destroyed, just irrelevant. Like the people who worked in a building, the city insists was only Everstone and wood. But she keeps the files anyway, because someone should remember, even if that someone is only her. 1937. The new Cliff House burns. Not arson this time. Actual accident, kitchen fire, grease trap ignites. Flames spread through the wood frame structure in less than an hour. John Tate is 71 years old, watches from the parking lot as his empire turns to ash. He doesn't rebuild. The insurance payout is modest. The property sells to new owners within a year. They construct something smaller, more utilitarian. A restaurant with an ocean view, nothing more. Tate retires to Palo Alto, dies in 1943. His obituary in the Chronicle runs 2 columns, lists his achievements: successful entrepreneur, real estate developer, philanthropist who donated to the city's park system. No mention of insurance policies, no mention of suspicious timing, no mention of the man in Thomas Chen's kitchen. History remembers him as a businessman who seized opportunity. Dr. Merritt is 71 when Tate's building burns. She doesn't photograph the fire, doesn't visit the ruins. She's seen this before, but she adds a note to her files. The second Cliff House stood 29 years. Sutro's stood 11. Apparently, fire doesn't care about profit margins either. The city rebuilds again in 1939. Art Deco this time. Streamlined. Modern. None of Sutro's Victorian excess. None of Tate's carnival chaos. Clean lines, large windows, a restaurant and gift shop. Federal funding through the WPA. This one is practical. Built to last through competence rather than grandeur. It stands. Still stands today. But no one writes poems about it. During World War II, Dr. Merritt organizes her archives. 40 years of documentation, thousands of photographs, detailed journals, the investigation files Pierce gave her, witness statements, financial records. She arranges everything chronologically, labels each folder, writes a comprehensive index. Then she donates the collection to the California Historical Society. No fanfare, no press release, just a letter explaining the contents and a request that they be preserved. The Society accepts the donation, files it in their archives. Catalog number CHS 1942-0847. The collection sits untouched for decades. Historians occasionally request access. Graduate students writing dissertations. Architecture scholars researching Sutro's legacy. They find the photographs useful, The architectural details? The social documentation? Most skip past the investigation files. Too controversial. Too difficult to verify. Too legally dangerous to cite. The evidence of arson remains in Folder 7, Box 3, Shelf B14. Perfectly preserved. Perfectly ignored. Dr. Emma Merritt dies in 1949, age 83. Her obituary in the Chronicle runs 6 lines. Identifies her as local physician and amateur photographer. Lists no family. Notes her donation to the Historical Society. Doesn't mention the Cliff House. Doesn't mention her investigation. Doesn't mention the years she spent documenting a crime no one wanted to acknowledge. She's buried at Cypress Lawn Cemetery. Small headstone. Simple inscription. She saw. She recorded. No one alive knows what that means. By 1950, everyone directly connected to the 1907 fire is dead. Sutro's heirs, Tate's consortium members, the staff who worked there, the investigators who looked away, the insurance agents who processed suspicious policies. All gone. The only witnesses left are stone and photograph, and the stone has been replaced 3 times. The city's official history of the Cliff House, published in 1955, dedicates 3 pages to the 1907 fire. Describes it as tragic accident caused by faulty electrical wiring in an aging structure. Notes that the fire made way for John Tate's modern entertainment complex, which served the city for 3 decades. Praises Tate's entrepreneurial vision and commitment to public recreation. No mention of insurance fraud. No mention of Dr. Merritt's investigation. No mention of Harold Pierce's resignation. No mention of the man with the toolbox. The footnotes cite newspaper accounts from 1907 and 1908, all of which accepted the official narrative. None cite the evidence sitting in Folder 7, Box 3, Shelf B14 at the Historical Society? Why would they? Official history doesn't challenge itself. It polishes itself until it shines. 1937. A graduate student at UC Berkeley requests access to the Merritt collection. Her name is Susan Caldwell. She's writing her thesis on women in early 20th century science and medicine. She's looking for Dr. Merritt's medical journals. She finds the Cliff House files instead. Caldwell spends 3 months in the archives, reading everything: the investigation reports, the witness statements, the financial records, Pierce's insurance findings, Darrow's engineering analysis. She writes a 40-page chapter about the fire. Her thesis advisor reads it, tells her to cut it. "This isn't about medicine," he says. "This is about arson. It's about a woman who saw injustice and documented it despite. It's unverifiable. It's inflammatory. It'll make your thesis unpublishable," Caldwell argues. The advisor insists. She cuts the chapter. Her thesis is published in 1975, well received, leads to a teaching position at Sacramento State. The Cliff House chapter sits in her files, 40 pages joining thousands in Folder 7, Box 3, Shelf B14. Evidence no one will cite. Truth no one will risk. The pattern holds. Some things burn. Some things survive. And some things survive only to be buried more carefully than ashes ever were. 2003. The California Historical Society announces it's digitizing its archives. Thousands of collections. Hundreds of thousands of documents. Photographs. Personal papers. Maps. Letters. The Merritt collection is cataloged for scanning. CHS 1942-0847. A junior archivist named Michael Torres pulls the boxes. He's 26, recent graduate from San Jose State. This is his first professional position. His job is to photograph documents, create metadata, upload files, routine work. He processes 40 collections per month. The Merritt collection is scheduled for 3 days. Torres opens Box 3, finds Folder 7, starts reading. He doesn't stop for 6 hours. The investigation files, the financial records, the witness statements that were never pursued, the insurance fraud Pierce documented, the letter from Inspector Darrow that city officials ignored. Torres reads it all. Then he does something archivists aren't supposed to do. He calls a reporter. Sarah Chen writes for the San Francisco Bay Guardian. Alternative weekly. Investigative focus. Limited circulation, but respected journalism. Torres emails her the digitized files, all of them. I think this is a story, he writes. I think someone should finally tell it. Chen spends 2 months investigating. She tracks down descendants of the original witnesses. Finds George Sullivan's granddaughter in Sacramento. The woman still has her grandfather's personal effects, including a photograph of the electrical inspector who visited the Cliff House in December 1907. Chen shows the photo to a historian who specializes in early 20th century San Francisco construction. The historian identifies the man, Robert Dearborn. Known associate of John Tate. Worked on multiple Tate projects between 1905 and 1915. Not an electrical inspector, a general contractor. Chen finds more. She accesses Western Indemnity's archived records. The company dissolved in 1952. Records transferred to state archives. She finds the original policy applications. The Sutro estate's coverage increase, approved without inspection, as Pierce documented. Tate's loss of opportunity insurance, written by the same agent on the same day. Both policies processed by Robert Halloway, who received a $5,000 consulting fee from Tate's consortium in January 1908. 1 month after the fire, Chen writes a 6,000-word article. The Cliff House Fire, Evidence of Conspiracy Hidden for 96 Years. The Bay Guardian publishes it in March 2003. The response is immediate. Local historians push back. Call it speculative. Say Chen is connecting dots that don't form a picture. The San Francisco Heritage Foundation issues a statement. While these documents raise interesting questions, the passage of time makes definitive conclusions impossible. We should be cautious about rewriting history based on incomplete evidence. The Chronicle runs a short piece. Alternative Weekly claims, 1907, fire was arson. The tone is skeptical. The article quotes historians who defend the traditional narrative, but the story spreads. Online forums, history blogs, local news segments, people start visiting the Cliff House, the current structure, the 1939 building, asking questions, taking photos, looking for ghosts of fires past. The National Park Service, which manages the site, releases a brief statement. We're aware of recent articles concerning the 1907 fire. The NPS takes historical accuracy seriously and will review any credible new evidence. Nothing comes of the review. 6 months later, Chen follows up. Where's the investigation? The article documents the silence. The Park Service won't comment. The city won't comment. Academic historians won't stake their reputations on 96-year-old accusations. Chen interviews Michael Torres. He's been reprimanded by the Historical Society for sharing archival materials without permission. Not fired, but warned. I thought the point of archives was to preserve truth, Torres tells her. Turns out the point is to preserve documents. What people do with them isn't our concern. Chen's article wins a Regional Journalism Award. Nothing else changes. The evidence remains in the archive, now digital. Accessible to anyone with internet access. Hundreds of people read it annually. Graduate students cite it in footnotes. Bloggers write about it. Documentary filmmakers consider it. But official history doesn't change. The plaques at the Cliff House still say, the original structure built by Adolph Sutro was destroyed by fire in 1907. No mention of suspicious circumstances. No mention of Dr. Merritt's investigation. No mention of evidence that suggests otherwise. Because changing the story would require admitting the city got it wrong. Admitting officials looked away from arson because investigating would implicate powerful men. Admitting that insurance companies paid fraudulent claims because challenging them would destabilize the industry. Admitting that 3 people died, never knowing justice. Easier to keep the simple version. Fire happens, buildings burn, progress marches on. 2008, 100 years after the fire. The Cliff House hosts a centennial commemoration. Historical display. Old photographs. Timeline of the building's various incarnations. The display includes one of Dr. Merritt's photographs, credited properly. Emma Merritt Collection, California Historical Society. Beautiful image. The Sutro Building at sunset, 1906. The caption reads, "The Cliff House before the tragic fire of 1907. Tragic, not suspicious. Tragic, not convenient. Tragic, not investigated. Just tragic." Michael Torres attends the commemoration, stands in front of the display. He's 31 now, still works at the Historical Society, still thinks about Folder 7, Box 3. Someone asks him if he knows the history. "Yes," he says. "Such a shame it burned." "Yes," he says. He doesn't elaborate. What would be the point? 2025. The Cliff House closes permanently. Not fire this time. Economics. The National Park Service announces it can no longer afford to maintain the property. The restaurant lease expires. No new operator steps forward. Operating costs exceed revenue by $1.2 million annually. The building, the 1939 structure that survived World War II, the Cold War, earthquakes, storms, closes its doors in December. The public outcry is immediate. Petitions, protests, letters to Congress. Save the Cliff House. But save it as what? For whom? The debate reveals the same tensions that existed in 1907. Some want it preserved as a museum. Public good, educational purpose, no profit motive. Others want private development. Restaurant, hotel, wedding venue, something financially sustainable. The arguments echo across 118 years. Sutro's vision versus Tate's pragmatism. Beauty for all versus beauty that pays rent. The building sits empty while officials debate. And in the silence, the stories surface. A blogger named Jennifer Kwan discovers the Merritt archives through Sarah Chen's 2003 article. Kwan isn't a historian. She's a data analyst, works in tech, investigates the Cliff House fire as a hobby. She approaches it like a data set. She builds a timeline, maps the financial connections, creates a network diagram of everyone involved. Sutro's heirs, Tate's consortium, the insurance companies, city officials, witnesses. She finds patterns Chen missed. The Board of Supervisors vote that failed to purchase the Cliff House, 6-5 against. Kwan identifies that 4 of the 6 voting against received campaign contributions from Tate or his associates within 3 months of the vote. The insurance agent, Robert Halloway, didn't just receive a $5,000 fee. He received a partnership stake in Tate's next development project, worth approximately $40,000 over 5 years. The fire chief who ordered his men to let the building burn rather than fight it, Daniel O'Rourke, retired 6 months after the fire. Moved to a house in Marin County he purchased for cash. $8,000. On a fire chief's salary that averaged $1,200 annually, Kwan publishes her findings on Medium, January 2025. The Cliff House Fire, a data-driven investigation of the 1907 arson. The article goes viral. Not because it proves anything new, because it makes the pattern impossible to ignore. Comment section fills with responses. This is what corruption looked like before we had words for it. My great-grandfather worked there. Family always said something wasn't right. Cool story, but none of these people are alive to face consequences, so what's the point? That last comment gets 847 upvotes. What is the point? Kwan thinks about that question. She interviews Michael Torres. He's 48 now, senior archivist, 22 years at the Historical Society. Why does this still matter to you? She asks. Torres considers. Because Dr. Merritt spent 40 years documenting it. Because James Wilkins kept a spoon his entire life. Because the people who knew the truth deserved to have someone believe them. But they're all dead. So we should let the lie outlive them. Kwan publishes a follow-up piece, Why We Investigate Dead Crimes. She argues that historical truth matters not for punishment, but for pattern recognition. The same forces that let the Cliff House burn operate today. Political corruption, insurance fraud, wealthy men who profit from convenient disasters, officials who look away because investigation costs more than acceptance. Understanding 1907 helps us see 2025 more clearly. The article resonates. Historians begin citing Kwan's research. Documentary filmmakers reach out. A podcast series reaches number 3 on Apple's history charts. The story of the Cliff House fire becomes, finally, larger than official denial. But still nothing changes officially. The National Park Service reviews the evidence, issues a statement. While recent research raises interesting questions about the 1907 fire, the NPS bases its historical interpretations on peer-reviewed scholarship and primary source documentation. We acknowledge uncertainty around some aspects of the event. Translation: We're not rewriting the plaques. The building remains closed. The debate over its future continues, and the question persists. What do we owe the past? Dr. Merritt documented the truth, knowing she might never see it acknowledged. Pierce resigned, knowing it wouldn't reopen the investigation. Wilkins kept the spoon, knowing it wouldn't restore the building. Chen, Callahan, Torres, the staff, the witnesses, all of them carried pieces of a story no one wanted to hear. They did it anyway. Not because truth wins, because silence costs more than speaking, because someone should remember that the Cliff House was built with love and burned for profit, because the ocean still crashes against those cliffs, indifferent to what stands or falls above it, because buildings disappear, but patterns endure, because 118 years later, we're still choosing between Sutro's dream and Tate's ledger, between beauty for all and beauty for those who can afford the entrance fee. The Cliff House stands empty in 2025, waiting to learn once again which version of itself the city wants to remember and which version it's willing to see. March 2025. A group of preservationists occupies the Cliff House, not violently, symbolically. 30 people. Historians, former employees, descendants of the original staff, activists who believe public buildings should serve the public. They enter the locked building at dawn, unfurl a banner from the terrace. Sutro's vision lives. The National Park Service doesn't immediately remove them. News cameras arrive. The story trends locally, then nationally. Jennifer Kwan is there, filming, interviewing, documenting. She finds Maria Chen, great-niece of Thomas Chen, the kitchen manager who worked the Cliff House until 1907. Maria is 67. Retired teacher. She brought her grandfather's recipe book, the one Thomas used at the Cliff House. Handwritten, stained, held together with string. He never threw it away, Maria says. Even after he stopped cooking the way he wanted to, he kept it, said these recipes were proof that beauty and sustenance could be the same thing. She opens the book, points to a page. Christmas, 1906. His menu for the holiday dinner, 12 courses. He wrote notes in the margins. Mrs. Patterson said this was the best meal of her life. She cried. That mattered to him more than any salary. Kwan asks if she can photograph the pages. Maria hands her the entire book. Tell the story right, she says. That's all any of them wanted. The occupation lasts 6 days. During that time, the preservationists clean the building, repair minor damage, document its current condition. They hold public forums on the terrace. Anyone can attend. People share memories, family stories. connections to the various cliff houses that stood here across 160 years. An elderly woman named Dorothy Hastings speaks, granddaughter of Robert Hastings, the night watchman who pulled the alarm in 1907. My grandfather never talked about the fire, she says. But my grandmother told me he had nightmares until he died. He thought he should have seen it sooner, should have saved the building. She pauses. He didn't know it was arson. No one told him. He died thinking he failed. The crowd is silent. Dorothy continues. If he'd known the truth, that the fire was set deliberately, that he couldn't have stopped it, maybe he would have slept better. Maybe he would have forgiven himself. She looks at the cameras. That's why truth matters. Not for punishment, for peace. On the 6th day, the Park Service negotiates. They won't remove the occupiers if they leave voluntarily. They promise to hold public hearings about the building's future. They agree to update the historical markers to reflect ongoing research and multiple perspectives about the 1907 fire. Not an admission, but not pure denial either. The preservationists leave. The building locks again, but something has shifted. April 2025, the National Park Service commissions a new historical assessment. They hire Dr. Rachel Kim, architectural historian at Stanford. She's published extensively on Gilded Age preservation, corruption, and public memory. Dr. Kim accesses the Merritt archives, all of it. She interviews Kwan. She reviews Pierce's insurance investigation. She examines the data patterns. Her report, released in September, is careful. She doesn't declare the fire was arson. She states, substantial evidence suggests the 1907 fire warrants further scrutiny beyond the electrical fault conclusion. Financial incentives, suspicious insurance policies, and witness testimony indicating possible tampering create a pattern consistent with deliberate ignition. While definitive proof remains elusive due to evidence degradation and witness mortality, the balance of available documentation supports reconsideration of the historical narrative. Academic language 4, they probably burned it on purpose. The report includes a recommendation. Update all public-facing historical materials to reflect the complexity of the 1907 fire, acknowledging both the official conclusion and the significant evidence of potential criminal activity. The Park Service accepts the recommendation. New plaques are installed in November 2025. They read, the cliff house built by Adolph Sutro in 1896 was destroyed by fire on December 26, 1907. While officially attributed to electrical fault, substantial evidence uncovered by physician and photographer Dr. Emma Merritt and insurance investigator Harold Pierce suggested possible arson connected to financial interests seeking to redevelop the property. The truth of what happened that night remains contested, a reminder that history is often more complex than we acknowledge. Not perfect, but honest. The plaque includes a QR code. Scanning it opens a digital archive. Merritt's photographs, Pierce's investigation, witness testimonies, Kwan's data analysis, Chen's articles, all of it accessible. The full story, the messy story, the true story, as close as we can get. Michael Torres attends the plaque unveiling. He's 48. Gray at the temples, still an archivist. Someone asks him how it feels to finally see the evidence acknowledged. It doesn't feel like victory, he says. It feels like the minimum we owed them. Them. The people who saw, who documented, who spoke, who were ignored. Dr. Merritt, Harold Pierce, James Wilkins, Marie Callahan, Thomas Chen, Robert Hastings, George Sullivan. All dead, none alive to see their truth acknowledged. But the acknowledgement matters anyway, because their great nieces stand here, their descendants, the people who carry their stories, because the pattern they documented in 1907 still operates in 2025, because every time we choose comfort over truth, we betray them again. Dorothy Hastings touches the new plaque. My grandfather would have liked this, she says quietly. It's not justice, but it's recognition. And recognition, 118 years late, is better than silence forever. January 2026. The House on the Rock will reopen. Not as a restaurant. Not as Tate's entertainment complex. Not as anyone's private vision. As a public trust. A coalition of preservationists, historians, and community organizations forms a nonprofit. They secure a 30-year lease from the National Park Service, raise $4.2 million through crowdfunding, grants, and small donations. The building will house a museum on the ground floor, rotating exhibits on San Francisco's coastal history, labor movements, architectural preservation. Free admission. Always. The upper floors become a community space, meeting rooms available to nonprofits, a small cafe operated by a workers' cooperative, windows facing the Pacific, open to anyone who wants to sit and watch the waves. Sutro's dream, preserved in a form he might recognize. The museum's first exhibition, The Cliff House, Beauty, Labor, and the Fires We Survived. Dr. Merritt's photographs cover one entire wall. Witness testimonies printed on placards. Thomas Chen's recipe book displayed in a climate-controlled case. The silver spoon James Wilkins carried, located in a collector's estate, purchased by the museum, returned to the building where it belonged. Jennifer Kwan curates a digital component, interactive timeline, searchable archive, data visualizations showing the financial networks of 1907. Maria Chen donates her great-uncle's recipes to the cafe. They serve his Christmas menu once a year, 12 courses, prices kept deliberately low. Food as beauty, the menu says, the way Thomas Chen believed it should be. The opening ceremony is small. No politicians cutting ribbons, no corporate sponsors. Just people, descendants of the staff, local historians, preservationists who occupied the building. Michael Torres, who first shared the files, Sarah Chen, who first published the investigation, Jennifer Kwan, who made the pattern undeniable, and Dorothy Hastings, 84 now. Walking slowly, she stands on the terrace where her grandfather pulled the alarm on 18 years ago, where he tried to save a building that was already doomed. Someone asks her what she feels. Relief, she says, that someone finally told the truth, that the people who saw it weren't crazy, weren't liars, just witnesses to something the powerful wanted buried. She pauses, looks at the ocean. My grandfather died thinking he failed, but he didn't fail. He tried. In a system designed to make trying futile, he tried anyway. That matters. The museum estimates 50,000 visitors in its first year. By June, they've already exceeded that. People come for the ocean, stay for the stories. They read about Dr. Merritt, the woman who documented what everyone else ignored, about Harold Pierce, who resigned rather than participate in the cover-up, about the staff who kept stolen spoons and recipe books because objects hold memory when institutions forget, about the fires that burned and the truths that survived. The visitor book fills with comments. I didn't know this history. Thank you for telling it. My grandmother cleaned houses. This makes me think about whose labor builds the things we call beautiful. We need more places like this. Truth is harder than myth, but it's worth it. February 2026. A high school class visits from Oakland, 30 students. Studying California history. Their teacher assigns them an essay. What does the Cliff House teach us about power, memory, and truth? One student, Marcus Webb, 16, writes, The Cliff House shows that rich people can burn things down and get away with it if nobody with power wants to investigate. But it also shows that regular people, doctors and waiters and cooks and archivists, can keep evidence alive even when nobody listens. Dr. Merritt died before anyone believed her. But now we know she was right. That means truth doesn't expire. It just waits for people brave enough to look at it. His teacher gives him an A. More importantly, she makes copies, sends his essay to the museum. They frame it, hang it near the exit, the last thing visitors see before they leave. This is what preservation means. Not just buildings, not just artifacts. The stories of who built them, who fought for them, who profited from their destruction, who remembered when remembering was expensive. The Cliff House stands today because Sutro built it. It burned because Tate wanted the land. It's remembered honestly because Dr. Merritt wouldn't stop documenting. 3 truths. All essential. You are part of this story now. You've seen the evidence. You know the pattern. You understand how beauty gets destroyed for profit, how truth gets buried for convenience, how the powerful write history unless the powerless fight back. The Cliff House is one building, one fire, one cover-up, but the pattern repeats. In your city, your neighborhood, your archives. Historic buildings demolished for development. Workers' stories erased from official narratives. Inconvenient truths filed away where no one will cite them. What will you do? Will you visit the places that preserve difficult histories? Will you support the archivists who keep evidence no one wants? Will you listen to the descendants who carry stories the powerful tried to silence? Will you be Dr. Merritt, documenting when everyone says to move on? Will you be Harold Pierce, resigning when asked to lie? Will you be Michael Torres, sharing what you're told to keep quiet? Or will you be the city officials who looked away because investigation was inconvenient? The Cliff House can't answer that. Only you can. But the building stands on those cliffs, windows facing the Pacific, holding the stories we almost lost, waiting for you to decide which version of history you'll help preserve. The one that's comfortable, or the one that's true. The Cliff House is open Tuesday, Sunday, 10 a.m., 5 p.m. Admission is free. The ocean is still there. The truth is finally visible. The rest is up to you.